Okay, I have 6 o'clock, so if everyone stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First thing is to approve the regular agenda. Does anyone have any questions, additions to the agenda as it's been presented? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Bruce Wolf, second by Rick Seiler to approve the agenda as presented. If there's no other questions, comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything in the items in the consent agenda that need to be looked at, reviewed, or anything? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Second by Maggie Bass. There's no other comments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Okay, next on the agenda is public to be heard on any matters that is not on the agenda. I don't know, is there anyone on this sign-up sheet? Yeah. Okay, but does anyone at this time want to speak to the council on anything that is not on the agenda? All right, I guess we'll move on to the next thing. Who's handling that? Ken, Josh?
That would be, Dennis would like to
Okay,
speak about the semi-quincentennial, that's a long word,
yes.
regarding the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. And so I'll let Dennis speak on that.
All right.
Thank you for inviting me, or did I invite myself?
Yeah. Press, is the green button on?
How's that?
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I invited myself to be put on the agenda, so I appreciate you allowing me to come in front of you this evening to discuss a subject that's kind of important to me. It's 50 years ago that New Prague was designated as a bicentennial city, and the 200th anniversary of our founding, the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I brought the Declaration, the bicentennial message with me tonight, signed by Gerald Ford. And when I was around 30 years old and had a family and young kids, I guess I had a passion for history, which has always been a kind of a lifetime journey. And at that time, we put together a committee, and I am, along with Lucille Nicolai, are the last two still standing. Lucille's 102. And for me, it was a wonderful opportunity to get to know the community and meet people. And we put together, with a great enthusiasm and a lot of cooperation from the community, a 3-day celebration, which I felt very proud of, not personally, but how the community responded to the celebration. And it was greeted with enormous enthusiasm. And tonight on PBS is the second part 2 of the American Revolution, a Ken Burns documentary about the American Revolution. And as I was watching it last night, I just felt kind of empowered by the fact of how difficult it was for us to get to this point. And for New Prague, it was a chance where we started it was a small community in comparison to what it is today. And so many changes have occurred. And as an example, so many different organizations evolved from that period of time. So that's one of the things I want to ask you tonight, is to ask the city of New Prague to help put together a community celebration, bringing different factions, different organizations. I cannot do it anymore. I don't have the energy. I've been dealing with some medical issues. I don't have the ability to do it. But when I began the bicentennial, we didn't have the Chamber of Commerce. We had Rotary, and they were functioning, but not overtly. We didn't have this New Prague Area Historical Society. We didn't have the Czech uh, organization. Um, today we are really unique in the area of having a vital and highly energetic community who's always looking to better itself and represent itself in the area. And so I would like to address the fact that the State Historical Society, I'm an honorary council member of the State Historical Society, and tomorrow I'll be joining all the executive council members for our annual meeting in St. Paul. And one of the things that I asked the State Historical Society is, what are you going to do? I was brought together with a group of people 3 years ago to address this. What are we going to be doing for the commemoration of the 250th? I was the only one there that had organized a celebration. The rest were just passive. And that discussion really kind of went nowhere. And so I was really happy to see that Governor Tim Walz sent out at least a starting point for communities to address this anniversary. I want this to be a totally bipartisan. This is not a Republican, a Democrat. It's American celebration. And so whatever the Washington, D.C. wants to do, we can make an example of do what we want to do and pull together and join forces and do something that our children and future generations can look back at with pride. So in your handout this evening is the I don't know if it's not an executive order. It's just a way of
It is an executive
Is
order.
it an executive order? So that we should take that seriously then. And one person, one group cannot do it alone. And I would like to have the city take the lead on this to recognize, as in fact it did, when Lieutenant Governor Perpich came in August of 1975, and I met him in front of the Public Works on Main Street, and he gave us this proclamation and being invited by a Centennial City and giving us status. And we were given a white flag. I don't remember that, but anyway, Bob Vanasek, who was our state representative, stood in for Clarence Walter, who was the mayor at the time, and accepted that and accepted the challenge of doing something. And the community did arise to the occasion. We started the Czech singers, we started the Czech dancers, and we didn't start the Historical Society until a few years after. So our demographics of our community have changed. The emphasis from recognizing the Czech culture has just kind of changed because we are more watered down in our population. But we need to recognize all these things as being important and giving us identity. And I think that New Prague has enormous identity. And you look at the surrounding communities, and I know in Montgomery can't even get people to come to for the mayor's request, come together and plan for what are we going to do and do forward in the next stage of our community's development. So we take the lead, and I would like and request that you take the lead and ask and request various organizations and groups in the community to come together and you can't do all the work. You've got enough to do, but many voices and many hands will make this all happen. And then they can determine what kind of a event that we can do to recognize this CESPA quincentennial. Any questions? Any comments? How do you feel about this?
I personally think it's a good idea. I like the idea of reaching out to the different organizations in town, the Chamber, the Lions Club, the Rotary, Czech Heritage Club, and anything else, Boy Scouts or anything to
Yeah.
to come up with, I think it'd be a good idea to see if we can get some representation across the board to come up with a committee to come up with some ideas.
Yeah, I think I would like to see it coincide with the opening of the new venue in the Mill Pond. Now, you do not call it the Mill Pond any longer, but
No,
it's called what is the designation or the name given?
city center.
City Center. I know when Jim Morris was, he asked me to do a design for that was years ago, and all my ideas hung in Patty's place on the wall. I'm so happy that you have taken the time and taken this area seriously to develop, because as I presented this before, it's only shows progress and moving forward, and I appreciate that. So how do you feel about reaching out to these different organizations and inviting them after the first of the year, but soon after, because we don't want to let this drag? I don't know what the timeline for that development of the performance venue is going to be.
Dan, do you?
Probably won't officially open until spring of '27.
Okay.
So it'll be probably finished by next fall, but probably not open this spring.
Oh, okay, I understand. Well,
But don't you think we should do it basically around the 4th of July?
Absolutely,
You know, so I would think that would be our target date.
absolutely. Which was our target date when we had the celebration. Now, I should also make an addendum. We do, Mary Smishek is still living. She was one of the members of the first Czech dance group. And Paulette Travenko was instrumental in inviting and developing the arts program that we had in the park on one of the days. So do I expect the same thing? I'm not trying to replicate what we did. I would just like to do something in a positive way to demonstrate that we take the lead, and for the community and the school children, I think it's important to model for that. You know, in this proclamation, Governor Walsh did allude to the fact of bringing in classroom awareness. We have no control over that, but we can certainly bring in the superintendent or the curriculum director, and they can instruct and help to promote the history of that in their classroom. And today we live in an informational age, and we have so many opportunities, and we can bring in the music department and the high school and the band, obviously, whether you have a parade or whatever. We can do something that is, make the 4th of July one that we can be proud of and leave a good taste in our mouth.
If this is something the city council wants kind of staff to help put this committee together, we can certainly do that. And I would assume once we kind of get it to the committee stage that they'd kind of take it a little bit more, but to kind of get kicked off the ground.
Right.
We could certainly do that as staff to try to reach out to these organizations and build.
Yeah,
that
and,
community
and,
based
you know, like you got the Legion and that, they might already be planning something. It'd be good that if we had a consolidated effort and, you know, maybe finish it off with, you know, the fireworks, that night, you know, so maybe, but that's always the 3rd, maybe we do the fireworks, or maybe, you know, we have to determine that maybe we change the fireworks or something for this year to end on the 4th, I don't know, but, you know, the Legion, you know, might be one we should reach out with it, but.
I guess would the city council as a group kind of like us to kind of spearhead getting this committee together and
Yeah,
get the process kicked off?
I think so, just, you know, because I think a lot of people probably don't even realize it, you know, and,
Yeah, it is not, it has been downplayed from the standpoint it hasn't been promoted or advertised as much, except for the Ken Burns documentary. And I just don't want any politics brought into this. It's a bipartisan celebration. We are all Americans. Whatever they do in Washington, D.C., so as an example, there's supposed to be on the White House lawn on the July 4th, a martial arts event. And I just don't want to see anything that brings conflict.
Another group that you might reach out to is the Daughters of the American Revolution. I think there's a chapter in Northfield.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
great.
we can certainly do that.
Any other questions? And I'd be happy to be part of this discussion. I do not want to be in leadership, but I can be part of the discussion and give you the history of what's happened before. and I can give you my 2 cents. I'm not afraid to do that. And tomorrow, as I said, tomorrow, when we convene and meet at the State Historical Society in St. Paul, there might be discussion of this. I will challenge the state to do this. My initial, my suggestion was to refit a semi or a large bus and take the collection from of the Minnesota Historical Society to outstate Minnesota. They often feel, well, that's a long, if they're up on Railroad, that's a long distance. You can't get to the Twin Cities easily. So I will challenge them to do something as well. And they're very helpful. They'll do anything to accommodate us, and I can be a liaison between them and the city council.
All right.
Any other comments?
No, I think if we can get a committee together, I'm sure we would ask you to come to that committee and
Yeah, absolutely,
share your opinions and.
absolutely.
and,
But I would urge you to get moving on it ASAP, right after the holidays. From now on until Christmas, for New Year's, everyone's kind of in a,
Right.
limbo, so. But we can do some preliminary work, identify the groups and make a list, and then strategize how we might do it. So that would be greatly appreciated, and thank you so much for giving me this time to present this to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, public hearings, we have none. 7 city projects update. I guess the only question I have, Matt, is on the 2024 issue. Is there any resolution? Or are we still struggling to get these guys to come to the table?
We got them to do a little bit of street repairs that they needed to do, but no, the majority of the work is still some underground work that they have to do, and they have not given us a date on that. So now we'll be looking at spring, but they have been notified, and we also notified their bond agency. So that's usually when stuff happens a lot quicker.
Okay.
I think the last meeting, I think I missed the last meeting where you guys asked. We are holding money. So
Right.
it's not getting done. It's not like we have the money to make the repairs at their cost. If that is the route we go.
The retainage, yep, okay. Okay, that was really, Chris, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't think so, but I do actually have an item on there for the 26 project.
Right,
Be the next on the docket here.
okay. Anyone
So-
have any other questions on any of the street projects in the works, except for the 2026, which Chris is going to address on the next item? All right, thank you. Next on the
All right.
agenda is the 2026 Street and Utility Improvement Project. Chris, are
Yep.
you spearheading that?
Yep, so right in front of you here today, I do have a resolution ordering the feasibility report for the 2026 project. We are working on the report already. This is a formality or requirement, I guess, as far as the 429 process. And with the assumption that the city is going to assess the improvements for the project. So with that said, I do have a resolution in your packet today to order the feasibility report for improvements on 10th Avenue Southeast between CASA 29, which is 15th Street Southeast, and 1st Street Southeast. And to order the report such that we would present that for council consideration, likely at the first December meeting is what we're looking at for that. Afterwards, just to make you aware, after the feasibility report is presented, public hearing is called, and then we go through the process of ordering the project formally for design afterwards. So just for you today, though, is just the resolution ordering the feasibility report.
Okay. And you have any questions for Chris? Okay, if not, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve, well, I guess I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 25-11-17-01, ordering the preparation of the 2026 project.
Second.
Okay, I'll give it to Sean, is that okay?
Bet.
Second by Sean Ryan. There's no other comments, questions for Chris? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Thanks, Chris. Next, there's no ordinances for introduction, no ordinances for adoption. Next, we have resolutions. And I'm sure you're all aware, these are resolutions with the 2025 project for people who are asking for a deferment.
That is correct. So the 6 resolutions in there are people who are asking for deferment based on age. Within city code, property owners may request that deferment based on age, disability, military service, or for having unimproved property. And for applicants that are requesting deferral based on income, that is handled administratively. So for the 25 project, we have 7 total requests. 6 of those were based on age. We did have the 1 based on income, and we're handling that one administratively to protect the privacy of the information. But the 6 who are requesting based on age are in front of you at 320 Lincoln Avenue North, 202 Pershing Avenue North, 106 Lincoln Avenue North, 107 Pershing Avenue North, Lot 1, 107 Pershing Avenue North, Lot 2, and 112 Lincoln Avenue North. And so I've included the 6 of those in your packet for review. At this time, staff is recommending approval of these 6 assessment deferrals.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Josh regarding this?
Do we have to do these individually, or?
Yes, because the resolutions they have to do individually. I would say at this point, if you don't want to have to read off the whole thing, you could just reference the number. So resolution 25-11-1702, and likewise. So.
Okay,
And I think maybe just a little clarification for those that are listening and here in the audience of what this deferment means and how it's handled to.
Oh, yeah, of
So
course.
that-
Yeah, sorry about that. So, yeah, so with the each street project, is the city's policy to assess each property an amount to kind of help pay for the project, and because they are the ones who are directly benefiting as the adjacent property owner from those projects. What an assessment deferral does is it doesn't eliminate that payment, it defers the assessment until the property changes hands for whatever reason, whether they pass it on to family members later in life or the property gets sold. Most of the time, the property is sold, and there's an exchanging of funds with that, and so at that time, then the assessment becomes due, and the funds from the sale of the property then go to help pay off the assessment.
Thank you.
There is an interest that does accrue, but it just stays with that and would be paid off once the property itself the assessment's paid off.
so both the assessment and the interest has to be paid off in full when
When
change of ownership.
Correct.
Okay,
Well, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 25-11-1702, deferring the special assessment for the property located 112 Lincoln Avenue North.
Second.
okay, got a motion by Maggie Bass, seconded by Sean Ryan for 25-11-1702. Any comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
I'll also make a motion approving Resolution 25-11-1703, deferring special assessment for the property located at 320 Lincoln Avenue North.
Second.
Okay. I got a motion and a second for 25-11-1703. If there's no other questions, comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 25-11-1704, deferring the special assessment for the property located at 202 Pershing Avenue North.
Second.
Okay. I got a motion by Maggie Bass, second by Sean Ryan for deferring the special assessment number 25-11-1704. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 25-11-1705, deferring special assessment for the property located at 106 Lincoln Avenue North.
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion by Maggie Bass, second by Sean Ryan for resolution number 25-11-1705. Is there any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 25-11-1706, deferring special assessment for the property located at 107 Pershing Avenue North, Lot 1.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Maggie Bass, second by Sean Ryan for deferred assessment number 25-11-17-06. Any further comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
And finally, I'll make a resolution a motion to approve Resolution 25-11-1707, deferring special assessment for the property located at 107 Pershing Avenue North, Lot 2.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Maggie Bass, second by Sean Ryan, in regards to resolution number 25-11-17-07. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. And no, we did not plan that Maggie and Sean were gonna take the lead on this, so appreciate that from you two, so. All right, next, item 12, conduit debt fee policy. And Josh, I know you're gonna take this one?
Yes, I'm gonna take this one. So, 4 of you may remember, Chuck wasn't the mayor at the time. A few years ago, we had the owner of Prague,
Estates?
Estates, that's the one.
No,
No.
Village.
Yeah.
Village.
Too many Pragues. Prague Village approached us, to see if the city was interested in becoming an issue of conduit bond or debt financing. Basically, this is a form of financing the state allows for nonprofit organizations to access interest rates that only local governments have access to, basically using the city and/or we'll say like a port authority or EDA as the conduit for that financing. Generally, there is no liability on the government issuer. It is kind of like a yes, we'll allow them to do this. The government issuer would have a reporting each year that is alive, but that is basically what the obligation to that government issuer is. And most governments then do it at a fee. And usually the interest rates are good enough that most of these projects are willing to do a fee. So a few years ago, we had one at that time, they were offering to pay the city $10,000 if we would be the conduit issuer for their debt. Ultimately, the city council opted not to do it. I know we as staff, as we looked at that one for the ongoing reporting that we would have to do, we didn't feel like the $10,000 was worth the cost of that. So fast forward to today, we did have somebody reach out to us to see if there would be any interest. The fee was a little bit higher than $10,000, not extraordinarily, but we just in passing kind of talked to our financial advisors, Ellers, and I believe Becky was on at one point. I don't know if she is still on. If
Yep.
you guys have any questions
I am
about
here.
it. But when we were speaking to them, Keith Dahl, who also works with Rebecca Kurtz, had mentioned that a lot of cities will have just a policy where they kind of set their fee at 1%. So if you wanted to borrow $10 million, the city's fee would be $100,000 for that project. And so along those same lines then, we kind of figured, well, at some point, because of the financing, like you would hit a point where maybe it would become worth it to look at being one of the, this conduit issuer, since the city would have no obligation for the debt beyond that reporting as far as I understand. And so working with Ellers, we did put together the policy in front of you, and that it doesn't lock the city into that we have to do it. It basically says that, yeah, we'll be interested if there's a local party or anyone who would want to do this, but we would be looking for a upfront fee of 1%. And so $20 million project, $200,000, $10 million project, $100,000. And so that's really what the policy is in front of you. And I guess if you've got any questions, Rebecca with Ellers might be able to help kind of answer those about this conduit financing.
Does this affect our ratios of how much debt we can have or issue?
So it is my understanding that with debt each year, You would hit a point where there's bank qualified debt, where banks are allowed to, or maybe it's not just allowed to, but there's slightly better rates as banks get into competing for your debt. And if that number goes above 10 million, if you lend more than $10 million in a year, you can't have bank qualified debt. It's still out there, it still works, it just doesn't have that bank qualification stuck to it. This does affect that in any given year. So if somebody comes to us with a $20 million ask and then we borrow money later on in the year, we would still be allowed to do it. We just wouldn't be able to call it bank qualified if it was a $5 million ask. So for example, if we had someone come to us next year and say, hey, we'd like to do $15 million, will you help us out with this? Staff would look at it and say, well, the $15 million would bump us over the bank qualified, but already next year, as a city, we are looking at potentially borrowing money for the electric generation facility, which is gonna bump us over the 10 million anyway. So in that case, we wouldn't get hit, we're already hitting ourselves with that, so it's not like it's a big deal anyway. In other years where we may not have a lot of borrowing, that would be a question whether we wanna ask ourselves, is there a competitive disadvantage to not being able to have bank qualified bonding or not? Sometimes there is, sometimes there not. It really depends on any given year. So does that sound about right, Rebecca?
That's absolutely right. And of course, with a policy, you guys have the ability that it's putting it in place, but it doesn't require you to do this every time you have an ask. You would get to evaluate each ask based on the merits of the application.
It does also help direct staff. So like if we get a better idea that, hey, if somebody approaches us with a 1% ask, we may bring it to you. If somebody approaches us and it's $5,000 and it turns out to be $5,000 on a $15 million project, we know that maybe the council's not interested in that, and so there's no point even bringing it forward to you. So that a policy also just kind of helps give staff direction as where you would, if anyone approaches us, how you would like to do this. I know in my time, this would be the second one that or like I said, the one that we had approach us as a possibility would be the second one that we've ever been approached with. But I know speaking again to Keith Dahl, like there are some government agencies that do a lot of this year in and year out. So,
What kind of reporting is required? You had mentioned that on a couple occasions.
yeah. Do you know probably better than I do?
Arbitrage reporting. Becky, what's the other federal requirement?
It would be arbitrage would be one, but it would be reporting annually to or regularly to the federal government on the outstanding debt. With that, it is something that would be the cities or the issuers' responsibility. However, in my opinion, one of the goals of the policy, including the one that was drafted, is that
Very dramatic.
ultimately
You
take care of the
froze.
debt.
You had a very dramatic pause there,
Yeah.
Rebecca. If you,
Oh,
basically you paused
sorry
it.
about that. I don't know where I cut out for you.
Yes. So you cut out right at
so-
where you said the goal of this policy would be to, in response about the reporting.
Okay, the goal of this policy would be for the reporting or for anything that it would be a zero cost to the city. So while the city is responsible for making sure that reporting is completed, those costs could be passed on to the entity that is benefiting from the city or from the ability to partner with the city to issue this conduit debt.
Does this
And I should also add that, like on arbitrage and some of those things, the city does contract to have that done. And so the city could contract to have on their own debt. So the city could contract to have the conduit debt as part of that. So it wouldn't necessarily be Robin needing to do that reporting. And then any of those associated costs with the contract could be passed on to the entity that is receiving the funds from the conduit debt.
Does this affect our credit rating at all?
No, this does not impact your credit rating. It doesn't show up, on the rating reports. While your name would be on any of the debt that is issued, it is not in any way the city's debt. There's, if in a horrible worst case situation, the entity quit paying the debt, it's not the city's problem. It's not going to affect your rating. It's not going to, could come after you, to make them whole and get debt payments.
So does 1% cover staff's costs? And I'll just use an example. A couple years ago, we added a second building inspector because of some big building contract that we needed an additional person. And then we needed another assistant planner with another project. So 1%, even if it's a $10 million project and it's $100,000, probably doesn't cover the cost of for potentially a new employee and or with benefits and everything else.
Yeah,
But that's if the project's done in New Prague. It doesn't have to necessarily be done in New Prague.
well, really the project could be done anywhere in Minnesota. And the $100,000 is almost or the 1% is a thank you for allowing us to do this with your name. As Rebecca stated, we do have reporting that we have to do each year, and that's kind of what the city's obligation is. But through our agreement with them, we could also basically say, yes, we would like the 1%, and you would also pay for the reporting costs. And so we're gonna hire company XYZ to do the reporting for us, and you agree to pay that cost for XYZ. So it really takes the work out of staff's hands, and someone else is gonna do that reporting work for us, and the company is going to pay for that reporting work to be done.
Okay. So Rebecca, how many cities have this policy in place, roughly? I mean, I'm sure you don't have an exact number, but, and why would we have to join this group? Why wouldn't they, I mean, who says anybody's gonna come to New Prague to ask this if there's,
Quite a few cities do have conduit debt policy in place, whether it's a standalone policy or part of their bigger debt management policy. One of the reasons why I think personally, why I think it's nice to have in place is that it gets you prepared, or at least having some of these discussions on, is it even something that you would be interested in doing? And if so, what kind of parameters would be around it? And having those discussions, maybe not exactly in this case, but so you're prepared when that request comes in. If you, it is a policy, it's not again going to require you to do anything. It gives staff, as Josh said, some direction. So if the council did say, you know what, we're not interested in any way, shape, or form of ever doing this, that at least can give staff some direction to, so they know in the future if there's a request, it's not something the city would want to move forward with.
okay. It just seems odd that it doesn't have to be in the town of New Prague, but yet they're using our debt potential.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, if you remember right from a few years ago, it was the owners of Praha Village that requested it, and it was for a facility up in Rosemont or Roseville? Somewhere up in the cities. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be here, like I said. I know that I've heard there are some cities and or EDAs, port authorities that do this quite extensively, like they use it as a source of revenue. We have been approached that one time that made it all the way to you guys, and we're more recently approached about a potential. And that potential is why we decided to try to put this policy together so we could have that conversation. It doesn't lock us into having to do anything, and if it comes down to it, we may never get another request again. But
So where does the 1% go? Does that go into our general fund? Does it go into a special?
yeah, so like I would view that as kind of a general fund miscellaneous revenue that we receive in any given year. So if we received $100,000, then that would be $100,000 that goes into the general fund as a revenue, similar to if we made $100,000 anywhere else.
And then who decided that 1% is the number? Was that you, Rebecca? Is that standard, or what's the most you've seen? Are some cities getting 2% or?
1% is pretty standard, and that's kind of the most of what, from the clients that we work with, that's kind of what the most is and kind of pretty standard. There's a few clients that go 0.5%, so um, there's nothing that says it has to be 1%. There's nothing that says there has to be a maximum. But when you survey around the region, that's a pretty standard number.
Okay, you don't, so there's no cities that you know that might be higher at 2% or something, or, I mean, are we leaving money on the table if we're gonna do this and use our credit?
Yeah. I am not aware of any that are doing 2%. 1% is the largest that I have seen. It's not to say there isn't something out there, but 1% is the largest I've seen. And there's again, a majority of the policies that Ellers has worked on does have the 1%.
Okay, thank you.
So if we would approve this policy and a project comes to you, does it still come to the council for final approval?
Yes, ultimately
Okay.
the council would, it'd be before the council for final approval, and I believe there's a whole process to it that we'd have to go through.
We'd have an application that have to be submitted, for your review and consideration. So
Okay.
And we could deny that for whatever reason.
Correct. Yeah,
Not gonna be
yeah.
falling into some trap that, oh, well,
yeah,
Okay.
this policy really just gives staff guidance so that we know how to filter stuff before it gets all the way to the council level.
I know, but this could be brought up at the same time you bring up the other issue. I mean, you could do this one before you even brought any requests to us.
Correct, yeah, so yeah, this one gets put in place so that way as requests come in.
What I'm saying is, we don't need to have this in place if we did it right before each.
well, in the case that we had somebody reach out and ask, we don't have anything in place for guidance except for what we did about 3 years ago. So it'd be nice to have a policy in place to say, this is generally what we follow, and we still take things to council for consideration. To Becky's statement earlier, she hasn't seen anything above 1%. So the policy states council can change the rate, or, if it would be something that they really felt was benefiting the community, maybe they'd reduce the rate, or come to a different agreement. So the 1% would be the cap, but it just gives us that guidance. Like I said, when we have somebody reach out, that we can say, this is what we have in place, to know if they're even interested in continuing to move forward with us, and then just help that timeline potentially move faster.
does anybody recall why we turned it down the first time?
It just sounded fishy, I think.
I don't,
Was it only $10,000?
Yeah, I think part of that, Sean, is it was only $10,000, and
It wasn't
we-
1%.
We as staff, at the time, we weren't told that we could direct that out and have reporting done by somebody else.
Okay.
And so we were just really leery for $10,000, the amount of work that would be put on staff for the length of the loan.
okay.
I think you spoke to this, Robin, but I'm hoping that the policy gives enough flexibility. The 1% seems like maybe the going rate, but in some cases, I think 1% is way too high. But I wonder about how to deal with requests that we want to have the flexibility to do 50 or something lower than 1%, or if we have to have something like in the policy, or give guidance as why we would do less than 1%, if that's an issue. So, as an example, many years ago, I worked with the financing for the Church of St. Wenceslaus here, and we worked with the city, and that was a private placement bond through our bank, but it was through the city of New Prague. But we basically handled all the issues, and we had the bond counsel. That's another question I have here. The policy says the city will appoint the bond counsel. Well, on some of these deals, you want to cooperate and agree upon a bond counsel, not necessarily if the city. If I'm the banker, I'm not sure I want the city telling me who the bond counsel is going to be when that part of it, or at least it should be done jointly. So I see us doing this only like in rare circumstances where it's more of a local business or a local entity that needs to use it for some reason, like the St. Wentz situation. They were doing part of it as a school part, which qualified for tax exempt financing, so that we needed to get the city involved to get that done, to get the tax exempt interest rate on it. The city didn't charge the church anything, except that the church paid for all the cost. So though, that kind of scenario, if that would come up again, I would like to be able to do it and not charge a 1% fee.
And I think the policy does give flexibility.
That's why I wondered, does it give
It
flexibility?
does. If you take a look at section 1 of the policy, it's, will charge an upfront administrative fee of up to 1% of the principal amount of the bonds. And then section 5 says, at closing, they would pay an administrative fee in the amount of 1% of par of the bonds or as negotiated based upon the size of issuance.
I guess, yeah, so when I
But
read
there it's
this,
only based on the size of issuance.
Yeah.
And
when I read this, I read this as it does give that flexibility that if the council decides that, yes, something is good for the community, or they would like to see a lower rate down to 0 even, that this policy really just kind of guides it to get it started. And then once we get to the council level, we are really able to dissect it a little bit more.
as Maggie has read, it says as negotiated based on size of issuance. So the only guidance that you're given is something, if it's gonna be less than 1%, it's based on the size.
That wasn't the intent of creating this policy. If there's something we can do to clarify that just the size of the issue alone isn't what the rate needed to be based on, but that's, without any other considerations, it would be the amount of the issue and a 1% fee.
So perhaps that section 1 and section 5 should be worded similarly so that it's clear as to what that 1% is based on.
Yeah, there are probably other examples besides this one that I mentioned, economic development wise, that you'd want to be able to, if there's some kind of state program that has to go through the city.
Yeah,
Maybe reasons for us to do it at
we can certainly,
on a much smaller size or whatever the size. The size might not be the issue involved in why we want to charge less.
yeah, we can certainly take it back and wordsmith this if that's, if the council generally likes the idea of it, but wants to be able to wordsmith a little bit more flexibility into the language, that's certainly something we can do and bring it back.
I guess the bond council issue would be the other thing, if that could be either discussed or, you know,
If I could if I could interject, I think maybe on that statement, and I don't want to speak for the staff, but I would recommend it say the city may appoint its own bond counsel to represent the city's interest for the issue. But I do agree that many times the issuer, we get to choose somebody to represent them. And I will apologize because I did review this and I missed that statement when that was being reviewed.
so in these kind of deals, is there, when you say the city's interest, it seems like we have a more material interest than if we're gonna hire our own attorney than kind of what we've been talking about.
I would say in many of the deals that I have been involved in for conduit debt, the city has not appointed a separate bond counsel. So I mean, I think it gives you that option if you wanted to, but many communities do work with whoever the bond counsel is that the recipient wants to use.
I think it's great to have it out there. I don't think this will be something that gets used very often. And and my position would be that we really use this only in cases where there's a stakeholder within our city, either a taxpayer or a business or someone moving in or a nonprofit that's located here or something like that.
I don't think we should, if we're gonna have a policy to use this, I don't think we should and tie ourselves just to the city. We may say the region, I mean, we're not gonna do it for Grand Rapids, Minnesota. But if Belle Plaine has a project, or Jordan has a project that we could assist with, I mean, I think that kinda, helps the area.
I agree with that.
So I just don't wanna
You have, the only negative as was described, if the deal goes bad, you have the reputation risk. Even though we don't take a loss financially, we have a reputation. Their name is tied to a failed bond. And our name is the first name on the bond, correct? So there's a little bit of that I'd be
Right.
cautious of anyway.
And
But I don't disagree with local economic development.
And I mean, and I would say it's very similar to the last one. Like if we bring you one from Elko, Newmarket, and you decide, you know what, we don't get the feels from that one or whatever it may be, we don't have to do it. I mean, so,
Right.
yeah, I don't think this policy necessarily says one way or the other. It just leaves the option open and gives council the ability that if someone comes in and has a $40 million project and wants to pay us 1% to be that conduit financer, I mean, that's $400,000 the city can decide whether it wants to accept or not.
Yeah, and I would hope that we would do our due diligence on that particular entity to see what their financial history has been.
Yeah. So yeah, so I guess if the city council wants, we can go back and kind of wordsmith that language to make it read more broadly, and bring it back to it at another meeting.
Yeah, I think that's it. Does everyone agree with that recommendation?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to join remotely too. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's always nice having a glass of wine with you, right? No,
Well,
I-
I'm headed to another meeting
I'm
here
just
in
kidding.
5 minutes, so.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
All right, next, we have the enterprise fund budget presentations. Now, how is that gonna be handled, Josh? Or
Yes.
is Robin gonna handle them, or I see Dennis here, looks like he's representing the golf board since Kurt is in Arizona?
Yeah, so generally what we'll do is as we kind of walk through this, I'll have kind of the department head, or in this case, board chair, kind of step up and give just kind of some notables from this past year. And then just kind of look at what the budget looks like, and we can ask any questions. This will not be a night for final approvals. Final approval of all budgets will happen at the December 15th, I believe is that meeting, or sometime shortly thereafter. If the council decides to go a little longer on that, this will really be a night for asking questions, and if you guys have anything you see that you might want to change, gives us time to make those changes then before December. So I will invite Dan Gardner, the chair of our golf board, up to talk about how the golf club did this year.
Hello. Thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm the chair of the golf board. As Josh said, I've been on the board for 9 years. Been the chair for the last 3, for better or worse. Play in the Keene League and the Couples League. I've been a member for about 35 years. And I will continue with my mediocre golf skills through all of this as we go through this process. So thanks for having me. So very quickly, we have a great board. We have right now the golf board's I say is the best we've had in the 9 years that I've been involved. So that makes it a lot of fun to accomplish a lot for us. So the golf course opened on March 27th. Still open today, and I would guess it probably will be open as long as the temps stay in the 40s. So our membership is as strong as it's been since 2011, with over 350 members. We had the largest single event in the course's history with 190 players and one tournament this summer. Want to extend a thank you to Mary Kay Proshek and Todd and the rest of the staff that do just a marvelous job with the flowers and makes the course continue to look beautiful. Jess Trevino has taken over as the food and beverage coordinator a few months ago. She's just great. And in fact, the club is starting a Sunday brunch that's going to begin for the first time on Sunday. 9:30 to 1, so I encourage you all, if you're interested in the Sunday brunch, to head off for that. The Christmas in New Prague shows will be starting 9 performances over 7 days in early December. That'll be new revenue in terms of food and beverage and rental of the space. And so Jess is doing a great job. The junior golf program is one of the best in the area. Dan Pauls and Jerry Brown just do a marvelous job, and I volunteer on Monday mornings for that in the summer, and it's just to see all those kids out there is just great for the future of golf in our community. So Jeff Pint continues to lead the maintenance staff, and it is one of the best courses in the area because I played many of them around here, and it's a privilege to play on our golf course. One thing that's not on there, I wanted to mention the golf scholarship program very quickly. We announced that at the 90th anniversary a few years ago, and we've been giving away scholarships to high school kids, one from the girls' team, one from the boys' team for the last 4 years. And that's just been great to be able to do that as part of the community. So, next slide, please. Thank you. The golf course is profitable. And it's a great community asset, and I've been saying that for decades, so I'll continue to say it again. People come from all over the Twin Cities to play the golf course on the Keene League on Wednesday morning, which is a group of over 55 golfers. There are people from St. Paul that are driving out here to play at 7:30 in the morning, and Golden Valley, Plymouth, and other areas. So it's a well-respected golf course, and one that I think is a fabulous community asset. So quickly, as you guys all know, there's no transfer of funds in the budget this year from the city. So we are self-sustaining. We project to add about $16,000 to the golf club fund in 2026, and we have an estimated fund balance of a little over $500,000. We've got $203,000 in capital improvement requests, and it's recommended that 103 of that come out of cash reserves, and a 5-year equipment certificate worth about $100,000 that'll begin in 2027. There'll be just a couple of small changes in the clubhouse for next year: new dining room chairs and carpet in the lobby and the golf shop, which is at a relatively small cost. The grounds equipment, Jeff puts together a plan that goes over about 5 years. He's got 4 pieces of equipment on that you can see at the price of those. So at the end of the day for 26, we're looking at an increase of about $132,000 in projected revenue, 8.5% in operations, and almost 10.5% in food and beverage, and that's because Jess is going to be very aggressive about that, and the board is very supportive of that. In terms of expenses, we're looking at an increase of about $115,000 or 7.6%, and that's about 2% in operations, 9.5% in food and beverage, and 9 3/4 in maintenance. We have a tree removal plan in place that we hope to execute over the winter, and there are, in terms of another maintenance thing, we're looking at some forward tee renovations, but that's probably not till 27. So, Chuck, anything you want to add as a board member?
Nope, you did a good job.
I will add just so you all are aware, also in your packet, kind of towards the end of the enterprise stuff is the golf board did recommend the contract for golf management in 2026. The major changes of the contract include really just updating dates for 26 and then increasing the contract amount from 102,173 to $107,000, which is about a 4.7% increase. And so that again will also get approved on the 15th. As part of the golf budget, I figured I would include that now for you all to look at and comment on.
And that increase kind of was similar to the comp study, kind of looking at how other people were getting paid in similar type of positions. So that's kind of how we kind of looked at the 107. thousand, even though.
And the board is unanimously in favor of this.
Yep.
So you looked at the comp study or just the golf board did?
I did.
Okay,
I mean,
so you recommending the contract?
I am recommending the
Okay,
contract, correct?
just wanna make sure I understood what was being
yeah,
said. Dan, do you have or just an idea of what the rounds have been?
I think it's gonna be a tip over 30,000, which would be 3 years in a row. Little bit weather dependent, but, when last I talked to Kurt, he thought it was gonna be a little bit over 30,000.
I think it's a little less than last year, but due to the fact is we started 3 weeks later
Yeah,
in '25 than we did in '24. And as we know, spring golf is something that is a lot of people just can't wait to start playing golf. You know, you don't get that same, if you have a longer fall, you do not get that same type of play because people are like, I got other things to do, time to, put the clubs away.
yeah. And I think it's fair to say that, a goal of 30,000 rounds per year is fair.
That, on average, that'd be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, when it gets down to 40-some degrees, are there many green fee players?
Well, I tell you one thing, I played Friday and the course was packed and I would say probably half of them were green fee players.
Oh.
Because you gotta remember, like Brackets Crossing, a lot of those private clubs close, no matter the weather. They may say, November 1st, we're done, we're private, we're closed, that stuff. So those guys are looking to play golf.
So we're operating at a profit even at the cold weather?
Yeah.
Okay,
Agreed.
that's great.
Yeah.
Dan, where'd you come up with the numbers for the increase? There's not a lot of detail here. So you have 9.07 projected revenue increase, 8.5 increase in operations, that's from green fees primarily?
Basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so how did you arrive at that number? And then the one I'm really curious is that we've seen alcohol consumption and whatnot down throughout an industry that I'm in, but you guys are increasing the food and beverage 10.4%.
Sean, if you've looked at the financials, have you seen?
No, I was hoping we were gonna go through that tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little bit more detail.
Well, yeah, so Sean, the line items are in the packet then, a little bit past this presentation, if you wanna dig into
But yeah,
the individual
our
line
alcohol
items.
are up
Okay, well, no,
considerably.
okay, well, that's great. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
does that translate
Yeah, and.
to next year?
Yeah.
To that point, over the last couple of years, we've, noted that the prices that we charge needs to be
Right.
raised a bit.
Yeah.
And so we plan, part of the revenue increase is raising our prices on food and beverage. So that's part of the reason for that increase.
And Adam Gill, is on the board, and he kind of, helps us direct, knowing what the industry increases are gonna be,
Right?
to help us, that, this is what he's gonna see across city establishments that are selling liquor, probably gonna do based on increase from the distributor.
I don't disagree with that. That's great. I just, again, I thought we were gonna maybe delve into it. I wanted to know where that number came from, because it doesn't say that Adam Gill is gonna, is the professional that's gonna tell us where it's going, so.
Yeah, he's the one who kind of, at least on the beer sales side and,
Sure.
and the specialty, the neutrals and things like that that College City,
Projects.
distributes,
They're our
right.
distributor too, so.
Yeah.
And then the expenditures, how did, I guess, again, I thought we were gonna break this down a little bit more detail, but.
I guess generally we were kind of approaching it like we've done the past few years, where such as like the golf board or the utilities, like is really broken down in detail by their individual boards, and we hit it more at a high level at the city council level, unless you guys want to dig into anything specifically.
I've never really liked the new program. I always liked the old one where we did sit around and we did go through it line by line, just because the elected officials are the ones that ultimately the buck stops with us. So, to make sure that the numbers are straight coming from.
Well, that's fair,
But
but
the advisory boards.
well, I would say at that point, then maybe we don't need to have our advisory boards doing it, because then it's getting done twice. on some of those instances. So I guess we're just trying to streamline it to make best use of people's time. And if the city council as a whole wants to dig into each of these much more individually, we can certainly look at doing that in the future then too.
Well, if I have the information, then I can look up I can answer some of these own questions
Yes.
outside of this, and we can.
Yeah, I
bring it
think,
back to the
one of the
first-
items I know for sure on, revenue or expenses on the, food and beverages, we increased, the part-time help because our trend this year is higher than what was budgeted. So that was a big number that I increased, so I would say that was probably one of the bigger things, and then also, the comp study increased a lot of those people's wages.
Yeah.
That deal.
Well, the good thing is that there's there's cash available that if
Yep.
for somehow these numbers don't come into play,
That's correct.
the Gulf Board knows that we have the option of taking that money to help pay that off. It's not gonna just fall to the, okay. Just wanna make that clear.
Well, are you
'Cause
gonna
I've been
make,
on the Gulf Board
are you
before.
gonna
And they
make that
think,
clear to the utilities and to wastewater and all that we can go in there and take their reserves too?
if we need them, absolutely. It's not their reserves, it's the taxpayers' reserve.
Well-
It's our money. So
These are enterprise funds.
I know, but it's not their money. It's
What-
it's the taxpayers' money.
Well,
because-
it's the city of New Prague's money. It's an
Right.
asset on their books, but it's technically, it's a revenue fund, so their money, the money's not coming from the taxpayers per se, unless you play there and you're a member there.
Right.
So it's not really the taxpayers' money. They're not paying, after now that we're not giving them any more money, they're not getting any money from the city.
They aren't, but I've been on this board for 15 years, and
Right.
for 14 of it or 13 of it, they have.
Okay, but
So
before
I'm
that,
still looking,
when the golf course was very profitable for, I don't know how many years, the golf course was paying an annual fee to the city.
right, exactly.
So, it's not like, when times were good, the golf course was supplementing money to that. Now, maybe eventually if the golf course keeps growing, maybe we will
Well, I
go
think
back to it.
$500,000 is a good start. I mean, I'm just saying, if those numbers don't come in and you're off $24,000,
Right,
just so the golf board knows,
right.
yeah.
But
And
I
the taxpayers know, who are watching this, know that we have the ability to take that money and repay that. That isn't gonna come additional on the levy for next year.
Right, I just don't want you to infer that you're gonna take this money and
I'm not
spend it on.
inferring anything, I'm just.
Spending it, oh, we're gonna reduce this debt, or we're gonna reduce this debt.
We could, but no, I'm not saying, that's not what I was saying. What I
Okay.
said was, the statement I made was, does the golf board realize that if these numbers, that projected revenue increase in food and beverage 10.26%, if it doesn't come through, that they're on the hook with it, because now they have cash. Because
Right.
before, with those numbers came out of the general fund. And then somebody else got screwed, really. Or another department got screwed somehow, because we had to find that money. So,
And I've said this to you before, and I've said it in the past years too. I would always appreciate, at the end of the year, if some kind of a survey or something to gauge for us that have to make a decision on renewing contracts, to get a better gauge on what's the satisfaction of our players, of our people that use it, what's going well, what's not going well, and just good feedback to provide for Kurt or whoever, or the administrator. It'd be nice if the board would consider thinking of ways that could provide some feedback, whether it's surveying 50 members, written or email, or something like that, just something.
Bruce,
I would
we've actually
appreciate-
talked about that.
I would
and-
appreciate it anyway, but,
And-
and it's just helpful, and I think it would be helpful. I'm not sure what feedback Kurt gets. Normally, everybody gets the negative feedback, and if there's a way to provide,
We actually did a formal survey, I think it was 6 years ago, and got some pretty good feedback from that. And we've begun to talk about doing another survey. So I'd say there's a fairly good chance that we will do a survey of some kind again this year.
well, I'm very pleased with the progress the golf course has made over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And since COVID has really been helped actually for the golf course. But on the conservative side, there's gonna be a year here sometime in the near future, we're gonna have bad weather. And we just have to prepare for that. And
Yep.
So,
Agreed.
but
Any other
congratulations
questions?
on a great year.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, next. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dave.
And Dan, you certainly don't have to hang out, but you can if you'd like. That is up to you. We won't hold it against you, except kind of. No, you don't have to hang out if that's up to you. Next, I will have Matt Rinda kind of present on the sanitary and storm sewers for the year.
Yeah, so first I'll go over some notables for 2025 for sanitary and storm. Staff gave about 10 tours to New Prague schools of the plant, and you can see in the top left position, that's one of our operators. Josh giving a tour to roughly 15 kids. So you can tell in one picture if you can that one kid did not enjoy the smell so much. Usually you get 1 or 2 out of the 15 that can't tolerate the smell, and that's just part of it. But that was a big push for me when I took this position is anytime the school wants a tour, give a tour, because it's a industry that's really not striving for, there's not a lot of people that go out, get out of high school. They usually go into a wastewater class, and majority of the time they're going to the water direction, which I don't blame them. Not a lot of people are going to the wastewater industry. So if we can try to find 1 or 2 kids out of all these tours to really go into the wastewater, looking to get a position in that, I think it's well worth it. So the guys really enjoy giving the tours. It's an amazing plant to show the operations. Really, there's only 4 of them in Minnesota. So below that, we have staff spent a lot of time fixing aging equipment. A lot of people don't realize that plant's now been online for 16 years. Time's flying by. So in the bottom left picture is another one of our operators, Tom. He is working on installing new media in the biosolid dryer that pretty much kind of controls the smell that leaves the plant. So again, stuff that you anticipate it's going to happen after 16 years, but it's still a surprise when you come in on Monday and you notice something not operating like it should be. We did start the SCADA upgrade and hopefully have that completed by January of 2026. And just a little bit back, even another year, 2024, we had 2 new operators. And then in 2025, beginning of 2025 this year, we had a new wastewater superintendent start, James. James has been a great asset to the plant. He brings in a lot of experience. The guys absolutely love working for him. He's very positive. I love working with him on the high level items, and the guy's got 35 years of wastewater knowledge. So he's been a great addition to the plant, and we were very lucky to have him. Again, we have 3 operators and 1 superintendent, so 4 people. I can't thank them enough. Their dedication to the waste treatment plant, to the city of New Prague, the knowledge they bring. 2 operators that, like I said, just started in a year and a half. The knowledge they've learned and they've brought from the outside in. We are extremely lucky to have those 4. On the storm section, we are cleaning Southside Park. When I wrote this 2 weeks ago, it was supposed to be done the following day. If you've been out to Southside Park, it's getting done at the end of this week. So it is getting cleaned, it should say, not it's been cleaned. So it will be cleaned this week. That is something that we try to do every 4 years. Southside Park is a smaller pond that takes the whole southwest section. So it takes a lot of debris. It's right in the middle of a park, so we try to make sure it stays as clean as possible. Also, the city of New Prague will become an MS4 city in 2026. We were notified in 2024 of this happening. So I'll be working with SCH to develop a surface water management plan that is really the first part of becoming an MS4 city. And we've talked to Chris, worked with obviously Ken Onagen and Josh have been heavily involved in the aspects of what we should be looking into when it comes to becoming an MS4 city. So now on the 2026,
Matt,
no,
real quick, could you just give like a 30-second overview of what it means becoming an MS4 city?
yep. So really so city's been really lucky for the 10 years. We've done a lot of the aspects of becoming an MS4 city. Big thing is street sweeping, pond cleaning. A lot of cities that, hey, we dig a pond, you just leave it, and when you have an issue, then you take care of it. Well, no, we've been maintaining our ponds on a much higher level. The big things that we'll have to be doing is more record keeping. Street sweeping, you have to sweep every street roughly one every 4 weeks. You know, you see a street, it looks clean, but there's so much debris on the street that you don't actually see. It's trying to remove the fines off the street so they don't go on your storm system. So for the city, I don't think you're gonna see a lot of changes besides record keeping. That's gonna be the biggest thing on our end, is the record keeping part of it. You know, where we haul our sweepings to, now you have to take that to a landfill instead of just dumping where we take it to, down to the compost site, and we use that for, filling in certain objects, holes, back in the city site. So nothing that we're doing real wrong, it's just you have to record it where you're taking it to now compared to what we are. So a lot more record keeping.
Yeah, basically once cities hit a certain size, all across the country, I believe MS4 comes out of the EPA. Once cities hit a certain size, they have to regulate their stormwater much more closely than smaller cities do. And so Matt says we've been lucky. We have been. A lot of times cities kind of get hit with the MS4 label around 5,000 people. And it wasn't until now that they've reached out to us and said, okay, you guys are gonna get hit with this. And so
What's the next level then?
I believe MS4 is as high as it gets. I'm not 100% sure what MS4 stands for, but I've worked in much larger cities, and they are MS4 cities. And so it basically says, yeah, we've got a higher scrutiny of how we have to deal with stormwater, and or any new businesses or whatnot have to deal with their stormwater. So, sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Nope, you're exactly right. So like Josh said, we've been planning this for 10 to 15 years, knew it's coming. So we just took the necessary steps over the years just to push in that direction instead of just having it all happen at once. So, yes, there's gonna be a little bit more cost, operation cost, you know, it's spending a little bit more time. And then the startup of the MS4 plan, which I'll go over here in a second. So just for the numbers for wastewater, we were projected for 2026 to draw out of $455,000 out of reserves. This is now the third year. This number is very eye-opening when you first look at it, but I will say we have not drawn in our reserves over the last 3 years. I'll explain why. One, that $455,000, the reason it's the number is so high is one, depreciation of $50,000, operation and personnel costs going up every year. This year, you won't actually hear me say chemical costs are going up. That first time I think I have not said that, and I will get to that in a little bit here. But then really the big reason we don't dip into our reserves is really it's not something it's because of our interest. We project about $75,000 in interest, and we receive roughly $300,000 to $400,000 in interest. This year, we're taking in about $350,000 just off the apartments being built in town, the hookup fee. So that is a big plus for us. I am proposing for now the third year in a row. Again, I've said this for the last couple of years, but we did not do a rate increase for probably 10 years until the last 3 years. I'm proposing a 3% rate increase. I'm not going to speak bad upon anybody, but our bond payments, interest payments have been going up. Principal payments on the plant have been going up. We just haven't been able to keep up to that. And then 3 years ago, the payments went up, and now we are just trying to catch up with that. So I'm proposing a 3% increase, and then projected revenue is total increase of $147,000 with we're projecting more in interest this year and stuff like that. For cost-wise, increase in personnel cost of $28,000. The reasons for that is health insurance, Paid Family Medical Leave Act, and then obviously the comp study that we just been discussing over the last few months. So a 3.62 personnel cost increase. And then we also have the operation cost of $94,000. Again, I'm not gonna talk about chemicals, cause actually chemicals, are going down a little bit at the waste treatment plant anyways. But the reason for the increase on that is utility cost, mainly gas, but a little bit electric too, as Bruce will kind of explain to the electric increases. That's why now I'm gonna yell that after this meeting. No, I'm kidding. But a big part of it is gas. And then increase to debt services. That is our bond payment, which is our interest is actually going down about 60,000, but our principal is going up 82,000. So yeah, that kind of covers the waste treatment plant 2026 budget.
What was the bond on that? Is there waste treatment plant? Was it a 30-year bond? Was it a 20-year bond?
It was 30. We just talked about this last week, Robin. What are we at?
It was 20, and then we refinanced it to 30.
We are under 30 right now, yes. It was 20 and we refinanced like 3-4 years afterwards, I want to say.
Yeah, it was
Robin with the, oh, you are?
2013,
Because of new
2014.
lower interest rates, you mean?
Yeah, remember you had to go up to the public utilities thing?
That's right.
Do the
Pitch 'em on
payments
it.
fluctuate every year?
What's that?
Do the payments fluctuate every year?
They do. It goes from a certain
We did have a balloon here within the last couple of years.
3 years ago.
And I think that's when, yeah, the draw on the reserve suddenly balloon, because we had that a balloon on that payment here within the last few years.
Okay, but for the rest of the duration, do the payments stay the same then?
No, we do have another one that's going up. Well, do you have that, Robin? Is that a lot of information for?
Let's see, what year is it now? 2026, we have the increase. We'll actually see, like Matt, you probably remember, it's about a $50,000 increase a year and just gradually goes up.
Oh, that's
The
a
interest will go down,
different,
but the principal goes up. 48,000, 49,000, 53,000.
What is the overall payment?
It was with that PFA, right?
Mm-hmm.
They put me under the hot lights.
Overall payment stays about the same.
okay.
Through the duration. Will, in the last year of the payment, which is 2038, it'll be about $50,000 less. It's just the fluctuation between principal and interest.
Right.
So interest will continue to decrease and principal will increase. The total debt payment stays about the same. It's just between the two.
It's just
Payment
20,000 this last time, or 21.
Yeah.
And it's 10 years to go?
Last payment's 2038, so 12 years.
Or 20, wow. That's pretty good.
Just in time to build a new one.
Don't put that juju out there.
Well, 30 years.
Been talking about stormwater. Stormwater projected to dip into the reserves 53,000. Again, we should come pretty close to even like we normally do, but this year is a year that we are going to spend $17,000 on that MS4 startup. So there will be an added cost that we don't normally see every year. We are projected to do a rate increase of 2%. Increase in personnel cost of 15%, that's wages and benefits, and then the FMLA. And then operation expenses of 15,000 going up, and that is where you actually, that's where the $17,000 for the MS4 startup is. And then increase of debt service, that's from the bond payments of the street project. That's all I got.
Is there any questions on the sanitary or storm, or anything you guys would like to talk about?
Going forward now that we're done with our total infrastructure on roads and that stuff, is that gonna, or any debt,
I would say
pressure, actually debt pressure on future projects?
I would say yes, under a lot of our underground infrastructure, sanitary, storm. Storm, as Matt said with MS4, we might see some increases over the next few years as we really roll into the whole system. But such as if we go forward with the 10th Avenue project, there's no sanitary work to be done on that. And so there would not be any debt added to the sanitary fund based on that project. I believe whenever First Avenue gets done, there might be a little sanitary work on that one. But yeah, going forward, there'll be a lot less sanitary work. And so the debt will start to roll off some of these utility funds that came from street projects, as it's not re-added onto it.
Thank you.
I got a quick question. So did we add another person? Is that why the personnel costs are so much, or did everybody just hit steps and?
Oh, we're talking about for stormwater?
Yeah. I mean, the other departments are in the threes and all of a sudden this
Yep.
is,
So,
We didn't add anybody.
well, how does stormwater play out? Because we have the one employee that would be, that we've got proposed in there, that would be basically a public work maintenance guy.
a new one? Is that a new position?
Yeah, that was one that, we
Okay,
talked about
that's
adding like the
right.
half position, if you remember right.
Well, that'd explain it then.
But yeah, stormwater doesn't take all of those costs, which is why it's both up but not up. New employee size as well.
And then you only got one guy, all 16%.
Yeah.
Medical.
Okay.
Is there any other questions on the storm and sanitary?
No,
If not, I will pass it off.
thank you, Matt.
To Bruce Reimers to discuss electric and water.
You can take a jab at Matt right off the bat if you want.
No, I never do that. I'm gonna start out on page 68 then with the water report, notables for 25. Replaced about 4,700 feet of water main with the CIP projects this past year. That included 100 service lines. It's probably one of the biggest years that we've done in the CIP projects, as far as amount of services and a feet of water main. That project went very well. So actually, I'll throw out kudos to Matt. He kind of oversees that, and it went very well. So we replaced wells number 2 and number 6, and that's one of those things, like Matt says, you come to work that day, and the guys come in your office and say, hey, we had a failure of a well. Wells typically run between $35,000 and $55,000 to pull and put a new pump on. So when you got a 400-foot well that pumps 1,500 gallons a minute, that's one of your major assets. So it needs attention, and you budget for it, but you don't always know how much that's going to come to every year. We were fortunate, and we were awarded over $1 million in grants to replace 80 lead service lines for the residents of New Prague here. Like I said, we have about 80 of them that it's actually the customer's responsibility from the curb stop to their water meter. The resident owns that part of the line. The utility and the city have replaced those lines up to the curb stop through all of our CIP projects over the last 20 years. But now the state is mandating that those service lines get replaced, and of course puts the onus on the utility to see that it gets done. So we applied for the grant and we received that, and so hopefully by the end of 26, thereabouts, we have those all replaced, and that'll be done through contracts. So we began the process of rehabilitating one of our filter plants, our filter plant number 3, which is located on Lexington Avenue. It's our largest filter plant. We discovered we had a leak in it, and so we'll be going out for bid to have that work done yet this coming winter. So hopefully we'll get that done. Again, that's probably about a $800,000 to $1 million project. On the financials for the water, on your page 69, we're projected to add $507,000 to the reserves. That'll help pay for our CIP projects, i.e. that filter replacement. The commission intends to pay for some or a portion of that anyhow out of cash reserves. We had an increase of $217,900 in projected revenues, and that's primarily due to some rate increases and some fluctuations in sales. The increase of, we'll have, in regards to the rates, we'll have an increase of 68 cents a thousand gallons for the non-summer months and 18 cents per 1,000 gallons for the summer months. I had to adjust that this past year, our seasonal rates, just for the fact that when we run into these summers that we have really wet summers and don't sell a lot of water during the summer, which is our major sales period, that really causes us to fall short. So we adjusted that a little bit, and we'll see how that works moving forward. Just the rate impact of the rate changes, I'm estimating that a residential user who averages around 4,000 gallons a month, which is probably a little high, will see a rate increase, a dollar per month increase of about $2.72 a month. Other financials, at an increase of $51,816 in budget expenses. Those increases are coming from $28,000 in distribution costs. That's mainly system upgrades, chemical feed pumps, filter upgrades. Increase of $20,000 in personnel cost. That's wages and benefits, and an increase of $7,620 in admin in general. That's kind of encompassed by like credit card costs, insurance, legal costs, that type of thing. Page 70 just gives you a snapshot of how we compare to our neighbors. I'm always hesitant to, and I always express to the commission that I'm hesitant to show that, to say that, yeah, New Prague has really good rates, or we're sitting in the middle, which we are sitting in the middle. It's really dependent on the city or the community that has to put in infrastructure that's very expensive, mainly water treatment plants. And the cities that are a lot higher than us have had to put in new water treatment plants. And so New Prague will be in that boat sometime. Although as far as infrastructure goes, we're sitting pretty good. I mean, New Prague has been very aggressive over the last 20, 25 years in replacing dated infrastructure. So New Prague can be proud of itself and is sitting very good when it comes to those kind of assets. That's all I had on the water. I'll switch over to page 71 in your packet, and that's with the electric department notables. We installed about 22,000 feet of underground distribution lines, 5 commercial services, and 5,000 feet of fiber optic lines. The utilities installs and manages the fiber optic system for the entire city, and I think almost every building and every lift station or pumping station is connected to our own fiber, which works out really well. The pictures on the left-hand side there just depict, that's looking down 2nd Street, and was in part of the CIP project this year towards the hospital. You can see the top picture with power lines, and obviously there's some trees had to be removed too, but then in the bottom picture, how nice it looks when all that's been taken out and we've undergrounded everything. I think we're down to about 38 services throughout New Prague that we have left overhead, and hopefully by the end of 2026, we have all those installed underground also. We installed commercial services to Mayo Hospital for their addition, and then 2FBC Tactical, Bevcom, Heartland Credit Union, and a large service to Great River Energy's expansion out there. We also installed underground infrastructure for our new generation facility. That picture is kind of on the next page, but again, we're quite a ways down the road of that $18 million project. It's progressing very well. So far, bids have been coming in very favorable. The commission will be approving some bids coming up here this month in regards to some switch gear. And then advertising, our last big hurdle for that facility as far as the bidding process goes, we'll be advertising for the building structure, which is hoped to be built in the spring of '26. Again, that moving on to page 72, just kind of shows some of the site work that was done by a local contractor. K. Witt received that bid, more or less took out all of the soil in that site and replaced it with granular fill for foundation building come spring. The new building will actually be built over that existing building that's kind of pictured in the upper left-hand corner of that picture, and then we'll pretty much fill that whole site. So looking forward to having that. It's been a 3-year process, and it's intended to be online by spring of 2028. Some of the financials on the electric, we're projected to add just over $1 million to reserves. But keep in mind, of that $1 million, we've got to make some changes in regards to, we're going to see, according to our wholesale provider, we're going to see a lot of up and down pressure in wholesale rates in the next 6 years here or so. So I've recommended to the commission that we put some money aside, approximately $600,000 this coming year, to be used in future years to offset dramatically higher wholesale rates. I think if we can navigate through this next 6 years with kind of the ebbs and flows of the rate changes, we've kind of got a plan together that hopefully we can keep rates really stable and maybe just keep them at about a 2% increase or so, which has always kind of been the goal of the commission, to keep things really stable and not have those big swings like 8 to 15% like some other utilities are having. We had an increase of $286,000 or 2.75% in budget revenues, an increase of 2%. So that yield about a 2% rate increase for all residential, commercial, and industrial classes. Just to give you a kind of a sense of what that is, that for a customer that uses 900 kWh a month, which is typically a little bit high, but that's the number I use for some averaging to other communities. It's about $2.50 a month for a customer. We had a decrease of a little over $400,000 in budgeted expenditures, which there's a decrease of $763,000 in purchase power. Again, that relates back to our projected revenues, so a portion of that's going to get put aside for rate stabilization. And also, I got a few variables there in regards to demand. This past summer, we sold a lot of energy, but we're able to keep demands down, so that kind of puts us in a new category in regards to demand rate structures. We had a decrease of $126,000 in SIMPA O&M. It's truly just what projects are decided to do for our plant. SIMPA has 100% or I should say a life of unit contract with both our building and our generation that's located on Main Street. And the projects for O&M that we pick to do vary from year to year. Some years it's $500,000, other years it's considerably less. This year is $126,000 less than the previous year. We did have an increase of $238,000 in personnel costs. Again, reminder that about a third of that goes to our SIMPA generation contract and is reimbursed 100% for those employees and their benefits under that contract. Page 73 just gives you an overview of how we compare to our neighboring utilities, and some of them not even neighbors. It's just where I can get data or where I have contacts that I can get data from. Some of the utilities kind of bury their rates, especially the cooperatives. They like to put in their tariffs are a little different in how they depict their rates or their energy cost adjustments that they change every month. But New Prague is kind of right in the center. We've always been right there. Again, that kind of depends on the projects that utilities have. You'll hear talk a little bit, about Xcel Energy. They're the huge provider for the Twin Cities, and their costs have gone through the roof. And of course, when they put in all of the renewable resources, they get to pass all that cost along to their customers, and it's evident in their rates. I just read a tariff report to the PUC that said they were asking for an additional 13% for the coming year. Typically, they don't get that. They'll probably get about half of that, but nonetheless, rates are going up. So in a nutshell, that's what I would have. It's almost a $2.3 million water budget and a $10.7 million electric budget. Got great commissioners, two of them there that are, Bruce and Chuck, are able to answer questions should you have them.
Well, if SIMPA's paying a third of the personnel costs of the increase of that 238, where's that accounted for in the budget? Is revenue in that 286 or?
It's accounted for in their O&M payments to us.
Yes, so yeah, well, we would balance it on the revenue side with reimbursements from SIMPA.
Of the 286 or 2.75%?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's still an expense to the city, but then we receive the revenue side to offset it. So that's how it's shown in the books.
Okay. And the personnel costs percentage-wise? I suppose I have to look that one up too.
It varies. I've got quite a few young linemen Sean, and, you know, some of those guys are getting upwards of 2 steps a year because of trying to get them through the progression. But once they've got 1 year left, and then I'm gonna kind of plateau. So
Okay.
then our increases, you know, it looks like it's crazy. But then those increases will plateau, and we'll have everybody at their max. So
Okay.
they'll be journeyman linemen and get paid their full scale, and then it goes just to whatever your COLAs that the council allows.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any other questions for water or electric?
And that was kind of the commission's plan, to get them through their steps and then.
So they don't all bail.
Right.
So I will just touch on ambulance real quick. There are no budgeted expenditures in the ambulance fund for 2026. Staff is proposing all those revenues and expenditures be absorbed by the general fund. Generally, the ambulance, in the most recent years, revenues have exceeded the expenditures. The revenues are just that monthly payment we receive every year or every month from North to lease the facility. And then the expenditures many times are just put back into any of the repairs or whatnot that may go into that. And so that has already been moved over into our general fund for 2026. And as I said, we are projecting those revenues to exceed the expenditures, so it wasn't a negative budgetary hit for the general fund. As of the end of 2024, we had an audited balance of $201,000. So going forward, with no projected expenditures in the ambulance fund, that will be a discussion that we'll be having as to what, if anything, we would like to do with that $200,000 that is sitting in that fund if we decide to close it out. So.
But you've already moved it over to the general fund.
So we've moved over the projected revenues and expenditures. The $201,000 is still in the ambulance fund.
Oh,
That would take a council action to move that over as to where we would like to go with that.
and when are we gonna discuss that, or?
That would be coming up here to just in 2026 as we kind of move forward. I know.
Because don't we have a renewal in 2026?
What was that?
Don't we have a renewal with ambulance service in 2026?
Is that 26 or 27? I'll have to go back and look at that. I believe that may be 27, but I'll look at that.
Okay.
We've kind of started those discussions preliminarily with them that we know it's coming, and I'd rather not wait until the last month
Right.
to do that. So, yeah, that will be coming up as another discussion that we'd have.
So if we use that $200,000, what does that do to our levy? Is that lowering it from the 5.46%?
Yes, yeah, I mean, if you decided to use it this year, right now it's about $53,000 is 1%. So, I guess I would caution against, obviously, if you can lower it this year, but that would be $200,000 you'd have to find again next year, on the immediate, because you'd be using a one-time revenue to offset that expense, so.
Yeah, is this 201, is that what got it down to the 5.46%?
No, that 201 is just
right.
in the ambulance fund.
That's it, okay.
Yeah,
It's just in a fund
it's
balance.
just in the fund balance there, that if we're not going to be using that fund anymore, then I would recommend that we do something with that 200,000. But I figured we'd have those discussions again to 26. As a council, what we would like to do with that $200,000.
And use that in next year's budget?
Next year, or
Process for
however,
27?
or however the council wants to use that money.
All right.
We've had some discussions about that before, and
I
I've
missed that meeting, I know.
made my comments known, so when we get to the budget, we can certainly talk about that. That's another meeting.
Yeah,
Yay.
23, so it would have been, I think it was 5 years. Yeah, so the agreement was made 23, so it'll be 28 when the
okay.
agreement formally was
That's
established.
36 months,
Previously.
April.
Oh, so it would be 26. Okay, yeah. But yeah, we'll talk about that, because I think, so we're scheduling a meeting with them here in the next couple weeks.
Yep, in
to go over stuff.
December, yep.
So,
Gotcha.
I guess and that is all the enterprise funds. Are there any questions at this point? Changes you guys may want to see, more information you may want to see on any of those? If not, then that is all that we have on the enterprise funds.
Okay. So next item is miscellaneous. Rick, you got anything?
Nope.
Bruce?
Nothing.
Maggie? Sean?
No.
Josh or anyone on the table there?
Nope.
Anything?
I do have one thing, sorry.
Oh,
You guys all received an invite about a month ago for the neighborhood meeting, for this Thursday, 6 to 7:30. Me and Chris do a little presentation for all the residents that come, and then we answer any questions that any people have. So Thursday, 6 to 7:30 up here. So I just wanted to remind everybody.
Okay.
That's it.
I did have one quick question. Bruce, where is the overhead, what part of town is that overhead line still? That you're trying to,
Residential wise, it would be down First Avenue Southeast.
oh, okay.
That area's still got.
Towards 29 there, or,
Yep.
okay,
I'm mainly on the east side of that.
yep,
And then the rest of our overhead lines are all industrial feeder lines. And so those are more expensive to replace, of
Okay.
course. And over the next 3 or 4 years here, we'll slowly pick on those. Kind of depends on how much money I have to do in distribution side in regards to the growth of New Prague that I need to build out towards growth versus replacement.
okay. But only 30 houses left,
30
approximately?
30 residential services.
Okay, nice.
anything else?
Different than that storm, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Mitch, you got anything? All right, I don't have anything, so I guess I'll look a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Got a motion by Rick Seiler, second by Maggie Bass. If there's nothing else, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Let's take about a couple minute break and then we can go into the special council meeting.